it's funny because you went through very quickly a lot of stuff with regards to how to think through high performing, highly effective scoring engine for your company. And I think like one of the yes, of course, like Breadcrumbs is a scoring model manager, so let's get that out of the way. And so a lot of that stuff we help with that. But the interesting thing that I wanted to unpack a little with you is the fact that most companies don't think like that. Most companies are like, oh yeah, sure, let's do a scoring system. Let's do +10 whenever like an email open, -5 whenever that other thing happens.
Yeah.
So what got you guys to think in this more sophisticated way?
So I have been, I jokingly say, fortunate to work at some companies that didn't have product market fit, was not a leader in its space, right? We were selling a product that was, or a solution that was way ahead of market maturity. And so, you can't wait for the phone to ring and look at how to harvest that demand. I think traditional demand models where you have that sausage factory or baton handoff works when everyone's in a buying mood. Everyone's, got money. They want to test and, iterate. When I was working in companies that didn't have that recognition, you have to pull the market forward. And to do that, no one's answering your phone, no one's buying. So you really have to look at what works and what doesn't work and figure out what are the right qualifiers that really we should be going afterwards. And even if we keep saying, look, we're building pipeline, but it's not closing, or it keeps being pushed out to the next quarter and the next quarter, the next quarter, you're just wasting money. Mm-hmm. So, given those constraints, we had to figure out, okay, let's relook at everything. Let's really work together. The hardest things, Armando, was negotiating or understanding what's actually working and what's not, but then looking to sales to help us get those insights and then discuss with our inside sales and marketing teams, what is the capability to qualify and when should we qualify, right? Mm-hmm. Not an easy process, but again, would never have done that if it was a product that was easy to sell, that had momentum, right? Because you're just managing a run rate versus really like pulling demand in.
Yes.
Which is
from the future. Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things that you were mentioning, like one of the hardest parts, that negotiation alignment aspect. How do you navigate that?
Very carefully with empathy. A lot of it too depends on the skill set, right? Like, how much can you expect, for example, a relatively junior inbound or an SDR team or an XDR team to qualify, right? And I think part of that, like just the one example I think about was when I was at this company, Lithium, we were selling a 6-figure B2B enterprise SaaS solution that was ahead of market maturity. We had to do a lot of, number one was, can our inside sales teams really ask the right type of qualification questions, right? That will essentially get our pipeline stage 1 board on third base, right? Like, we figured out, for example, look, there was a certain set of qualifying fields that in stage 1, a sales rep would ask. So how do we actually make sure that we fulfill between marketing and inside sales 40% of those or 50% of those, right? Sales would like 100% of all those qualification fields met, but we had to discuss with sales teams, figure out, do we need a training plan, or no, we need to layer in technology to help us find additional, insights about that stage 1 opportunity, so that I always say, how do I get my sales pipeline board on third base, right? So it's already ready to go. And that's just getting together in a room to figure that out.
For sure. And one thing I wanted to unpack that you touched on quickly as well is that measurement aspect. I think it's kind of a common denominator to lots of the stuff that you talked about. But I think it's worth unpacking further. How do you measure success?
Yeah. So overall, the biggest thing for me was where my starting point was. So in some of the companies that I've been at, marketing to inside sales handoff, less than 5%, right?
Okay.
We were able to get it to 30% marketing to sales handoff, right? So number one, you dramatically reduce the volume, right, of leads or accounts that you need because you're able to drive more efficient conversion.
Right.
The other thing at the end of the day, you look at pipeline, right, as another metric, but also basically, the ability for that to turn into bookings. So you're looking at it in totality versus each individual team. And that was a major shift. The other thing that I'll tell you as an insight, Armando, that we learned was that in this process, right, old school mentality was, hey, marketing's not doing their job or inside sales is dropping the ball. In this process where we all agreed on the handoff stages, what it would look like, sales going through their process, we actually learned that a lot of it was product shortcomings, right? And we're not pointing fingers. We're just saying, look, we're losing customers at stage 2 because there's product gaps. And here's the data that tells us that. So, in the past, you have a lot of anecdotes, right? Where every team is trying to figure out their own way to improve things. And it's hard to know. But here, when you have and this is why I say it's a closed loop model, you're able to more quickly figure out how to diagnose these challenges. So those were some of the metrics that I think about of like what we were seeing in some of the different companies that I've been at, that I've been able to implement in whole or parts of this.
Yeah. So when you say feedback loop model or like system, that is really like a feedback loop into how the funnel is behaving. And then comparing that with best practices and benchmarks so that you can get a sense of, points of leverage, where to focus on with regards to, hey, this is an area of improvement that we could tackle.
Yep.
Interesting. Well, this has been awesome, Kenny. Thank you so much. Very excited to have you part of this Hot Takes Live. If anyone wants to connect further with Kenny, they can find you on LinkedIn.
Find me on LinkedIn. I always love chatting about this kind of stuff. I have visuals. I can also, if people want to walk through things, happy to do that. I
have one more question actually before wrapping up, since we have 60 seconds more. What is revenue marketing and how is it different from marketing?
Yeah. So revenue marketing to me looks not just at, traditional pipeline generation or like overall like broad demand generation. Revenue marketing really looks at what are all the ways that marketing can get involved in like pre-pipeline, in pipeline, post-pipeline, and customer marketing to look at a total portfolio of how to drive the business forward, right?
So not only top of the funnel, but like middle and bottom of the funnel as well.
Middle and bottom, and ultimately the goal is revenue. It's not pipeline. Because again, in this model, I've been at a lot of companies, Armando, where I jokingly say there are pipe laundering factories. Pipeline goes in, gets flushed out, gets pushed out. No one knows what happened. And if you're spending money on it, you got to know actually how efficient.
Yes. Where is it going? What is it doing? Or, otherwise, what's the point? Love it.